Welcome to episode 10 of the Blockbusters podcast. I'm Brian.
And I'm Paul.
And today's date is January the 9th, 2013. Ooh. And today we will be discussing The Hobbit, An Unexpected Journey.
Oh yes, very much unexpected actually. I was not expecting to hear of news of a Hobbit.
Terrible Gollum impressions to ensue.
Alright, well this film, going very briefly into it, is the first third or so of the book The Hobbit.
Which is the shortest of those books.
Basically, Bilbo decides to write a book for Frodo explaining how he got the ring and the adventure that followed, and you get to see him meeting the dwarves, leaving his front door for what we are to assume pretty much the first time to leave the Shire, finding the ring in this one, and learning a little bit more about the dwarven history as we go.
Mm-hmm.
Right, so, very quickly, here, going through the cast, and we'll come back to this because we have some stuff to say about some of them. You've got Martin Freeman as Bilbo Baggins, very good choice, and I will return to that. Ian McKellen as Gandalf the Grey.
Of course, revisiting.
Then you have the dwarves. Now, the names of the dwarves are Thorin Oakenshield, and then Balin, Dwalin, Philly, Killy, Dory, Nori, Ori, Owen, Glowin, Bifer, Bofer, and Bomber. Sorry if I've messed any of those
Sleepy,
up.
Grumpy, Larry, Curly, Mo.
Yeah, all those
all
are
in there.
And played by, in order, Richard Armitage, Ken Scott, Graham McTavish, Dino Gorman, Aidan Turner, Mark Hadlow, Jed Brophy, Adam Brown, John Callan, Peter Hambleton, lovely last name there, William Kircher, James Nesbitt, and Stephen Hunter.
Did everyone get that? Right?
Yeah.
Did we write that all down? Okay.
Yes, rewind and figure out who's who at your own pace there.
Or, for the love of God, look up on IMDb. If you're really that interested.
Yeah. And, well, if we were to go to the beginning again, a very lovely cameo as well by Ian Holm and Elijah Wood.
Elijah Wood, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, was not expecting that. I knew that Ian Holm was in it in some capacity.
Yeah, I heard he was in it, yeah.
And then you got to see Elijah Wood just kind of poke his head round the corner.
Like, he was in there for a little bit, yeah.
Yeah, so a nice little...
It was a great way to tie it into Fellowship.
So you see him on the day of his 111th birthday, starting to write this book. 111
years.
Yes, which makes me actually think, how long are the days in the Shire if he has time to write this book before the party? Because you see him finish the book at the beginning of the Fellowship. So I know it's not necessarily the longest book in the world, but he writes it.
And when you're writing with like a quill or whatever, it's time consuming, but...
And Frodo is not the least bit curious after that initial, what are you doing?
It's a movie.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
And the other thing I'll say is it's kind of sad because if you actually think about it, Frodo never gets to read the book that is being written for him.
No,
so
because he dies, essentially. Sorry.
Yeah, sorry about ruining that.
Ruining
the book's only
10 years ago. Yeah, the books are, seriously how old? Well, he didn't technically die. Went to the Grey Havens, which...
Yes, went to the other world.
Where he can't talk to any of the other people ever again.
He'll never see them ever again. Yeah. No communication, presumably.
Yeah.
Well, maybe there's some special people that can commune with them. I don't know.
I don't know how it works. I've never visited.
Alright, so going back then, we have, as we said, Martin Freeman as Bilbo Baggins.
Dr. Watson himself.
Now, Bilbo Baggins is basically sort of like your quintessential old English man in the Lord of the Rings. And so, in The Hobbit, when he's a young lad-ish, 50, I believe he is, because it's 60 years before, you find someone who is your sort of quintessential English man, middle-aged, and Martin Freeman, that's Martin Freeman at this point.
And related to the story, the typical Hobbit. Up till that time. Very comfortable, just drinking his ale and putting his feet up, his big hairy feet up, and
he says,
enjoying the quiet life.
Yeah, he says, I'm a Baggins of Bag End. Like, I don't go anywhere. Stay here, I work, I stay here again. This is how the world works. Now, I found out Peter Jackson said his one and only choice for Bilbo was Martin Freeman, and reworked the entire shooting schedule to get him on board because of his Sherlock thing.
Yeah. Well worth it. Worth it.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, it's Martin Freeman if we're going for examples of him being as English can be, in the not so popular, I believe, Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy film that came out in like 2005, something like that, with your idol Zooey Deschanel in it as Trillian. He is Arthur Dent. He is a bumbling Englishman, and once again, he is your kind of bumbling Englishman. You know, there's some traditions that must be upheld, and so
yes.
He has to have his handkerchief. So, fantastic choice. And thank you, Peter Jackson, for working around that one.
And I'm glad he knew what he wanted there.
Yeah. And we've said it a couple of times now, Sherlock, if you're listening to this podcast and you haven't watched Sherlock, then
do yourself a huge favor.
Yeah. You may as well stop listening now. Go to Netflix, watch both seasons of Sherlock. Don't worry. Yeah, as Brian said, it's only 6 episodes for 2 seasons.
Yeah.
Not this American 24 episodes a
Although
season.
each episode is like a 90-minute film.
Yes, true.
Yeah.
Still worth it.
Absolutely, yeah.
And that does actually come back, because someone I didn't mention, he's in it very, 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 very briefly. In this film, Benedict Cumberbatch.
There was never a more English name than Benedict Cumberbatch.
Well, Peter Hambleton tried to have him beat, but no.
No.
Mr. Cumberbatch wins out. And he plays Sherlock in Sherlock, and he plays Smaug the Dragon in what turns out to be the next
fantastic film. Makeup job, by the way.
Oh, yes.
I wonder how many hours he sat in the chair for that.
Oh, probably a lot. Had to put on a lot of weight, I think.
Yes, it's very scaly.
And he also plays the Necromancer, who is only in it very, 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 very briefly. You hear him kind of whispering a bit, and based on what I've heard, like both him and Smaug are in it. Well, Smaug is definitely in it a lot more in the next few films, and I think the Necromancer does come into play a few times. I haven't read past pretty much where the film ends in the book, so I can't be 100% accurate on some of the plot past this, but I'm fairly certain his character is important, mainly because I know who his character is, and I don't want to spoil it for anyone. So, yes. Moving on from that, then, you've got Ian McKellen returning as Gandalf the Grey. And
all the other returning alum, you got
Hugo Weaving
yeah,
as Elrond.
You got Kate Blanchett, Galadriel,
and Christopher Lee as
Saruman. The not yet corrupted Saruman, which is
possibly getting corrupted.
But I still enjoyed seeing him before, when he was still an ally of Gandalf's.
Even though you can tell, as Gandalf says in the film, Saruman is the most powerful of all the wizards at this point. I'm fairly certain that it was him, and I think a couple of others who are kind of on the same level, but you only ever see Saruman. And another one, we'll get to him.
Yes.
And so it's interesting to see there is a very clear ranking of, if you're the more powerful wizard, you are basically the one that is listened to. Kinda. Yeah. You get to see that the friendships through Galadriel and Elrond actually kind of trump what Sauron's trying to do.
And a little more into Gandalf and Galadriel's relationship, which isn't, I reading the books knew of, but isn't really touched on at all. It just, it's obviously they're both very old beings and known each other for a long time.
As you probably would if you're that long-lived. You probably bump into each other. So then you've got Thorin Oakenshield, played by Richard Armitage. And he is the grandson of the King of the Mountain, who was the one that was sort of kicked out by Smaug however many years ago it was. I can't remember off the top of my head. But the dwarves have been thrown out, and you also see, at the very beginning, you get to see that the elves didn't come to the aid of the dwarves, which shows you where that hostility comes
between
from.
Legolas and Gimli, yes.
And it's interesting, because watching it, I saw, they see the elves don't come to help, and so they're obviously the elves are terrible people. I was sort of siding with the elves in as much as a dragon has just kicked the entire dwarf army out of the mountain and killed numerous people. How much chance do you think you've got on horseback?
Yeah.
Really?
And we're immortal unless we die in battle, so I think I'm going to keep on moving.
I'll be over there. Let me know how it turns out.
Over here. I'll be living forever right over here.
Now, I don't know Richard Armitage that well.
I looked into him briefly. He was in Captain America.
Okay. So this is probably one of his biggest roles then?
If you watch the Robin Hood series on BBC, he was... I can't remember who he was in that, but I know he was in that.
Right. So this is probably his biggest role... Or one of, I will say.
He was the Guy of Gisborne. There you go. There we go.
How could you forget that?
It just came to me. I don't know. Came to me through the internet.
Internet? What is that? Is that your nickname for your brain? I don't know. So, and he, I would say, does a fairly good job of being this. He's clearly out for revenge, kind of. I'm not quite sure what to call it.
He is the Aragorn character of this film, the rogue kind of.
Yeah, very much. And, every single dwarf there would lay down their lives for this guy. Like he is the heir to the throne, both in been born into it, and also in deed and character.
And deserving it.
So I was very pleased with that character. As I said, I only read the book up to pretty much where the film ended, and that was 10, 12 years ago. So I am not familiar with these characters at all. So I liked being able to watch this as a one-off thing. Like, I don't know anything about this world, because watching Lord of the Rings, I'd read Lord of the Rings, I remember most Lord of the Rings, I knew where that was going, but this was a completely fresh thing, and I liked being introduced to all of these dwarves and seeing a fair amount of their plight and everything. And you've got almost 2 3/4 hours of film. You got to see a fair bit of backstory.
Yeah, a little bit. Yeah, and I was thinking about the kind of advantage of the films coming out in the order they did. When Tolkien was writing The Hobbit, that's I think starting in World War I or whatever, in the trenches, I think, making notes for Middle Earth or whatever. He had that whole world to set up of Middle Earth.
Yeah.
People going to see The Hobbit are already familiar with that universe. So that saved Peter Jackson a lot of 20 minutes probably in his world, or half an hour of just what is this world and what are elves and what are hobbits, and even though it's lightly touched on, just for some reason if you've not watched the Lord of the Rings films, but I thought that was one of the advantages of them coming out in the way they did. But.
Yeah. Well, not saying that you don't get the opening explanation,
because
you get the whole backstory of
you get you get a little refresher.
Now the other dwarves. Not going to go into too many of the people there. The only 2 that I had any knowledge of is the one playing Killy, which, if you watch the film, there's 2 dwarves they're either brothers or cousins, or they clearly very friendly, know each other. They're Killy and Philly, and Killy is played by someone called Aidan Turner, who is in a series called Being Human. There is an American
English,
one.
Yeah, he's in the English
but this
version,
is the English one. And he played the main vampire for, I think it was 2.5 seasons? Something like that. Might have been 3, I don't know. It's been a while since I watched it. And he was really good in that. And then watching the film, I think it was about 20 minutes after he first appeared on screen, I was really thinking, is that vampire on the show?
That thing came? Sorry. No, ignore us. Ignore me. Yes. Edit that out later, sir.
John Mulaney, as you absolutely must know.
Ding game. All right.
And the other person that I wanted to touch on was the James Nesbitt.
Okay.
As Bofa.
Okay.
James Nesbitt was in something that we both have seen, and I'm fairly certain you liked it. I did enjoy it, yeah. It's called Jekyll, a Netflix thing there as well, if you want to watch that. And it is a modern telling of the Jekyll and Hyde. Yeah, and he plays the main character and plays it very well.
I did enjoy that. Would have liked to have seen another series of that. But I'm not going to explain it, but they do leave you hanging a little bit at the end.
It's one of those things of it would be nice to see a continuation, but they could end it where it is.
Yeah.
Only 6 episodes again, and each one's shorter than the Sherlock, so worth watching definitely. And James Nesbitt is always good in pretty much anything that he's been in. So pretty much every dwarf here.
It was Balin. Balin was one. I thought he was
Ken
worth
Scott.
mentioning just because it's.
He's one of the major. Dwarves there.
And brought up in the Rings film.
Yeah, he is the uncle of Gimli, or great uncle.
I'm going to overstep my bounds and I'm not going to hazard a guess because I know there's relation. Yeah.
I'm fairly certain the word uncle is in the relation.
Uncle or cousin, or I don't know. Or uncle, cousin, who knows?
Yeah. Father's brother's
I don't know how
nephew's
relations
cousin,
work.
Former roommate.
Does that make us?
Absolutely nothing. Anyway.
What movie are we talking about?
I don't know anymore.
What did we see? The Hobbit, that's right.
Yeah, so
Part 1.
So all of these people, they do solid performances, I would say. I mean, there are some that aren't touched on as much, and there are some here. It's pretty much the same in the book. Mm-hmm. There are some dwarves that are kind of there as filler, just because you can't go in with, say, 7 dwarves. you need something that appears to be a bit of a bigger group. So you get some dwarves that aren't touched on as much. You just know that they are connected to.
And they're handy as plot devices as well. You can have the funny one and the serious one and the brooding one.
Yes,
different ways to use all of those.
The overweight one.
Well, when you're really 3 feet tall, you can't be. That's a pretty convenient excuse. But
all of these people, I would say, the on-screen chemistry for the group is fairly solid. I mean,
I felt it not as much as I did with Fellowship, but I mean, maybe I was swayed by the word Fellowship. But definitely, they worked well together.
Well, I would say probably towards the end of the 3 Lord of the Rings films, you could see, because they've clearly been filming for so long, that everything is really coming together for them. And you do get this somewhat sort of, who's this person, or whatever, in the first film. This one, I found out every one of the main actors, I'm guessing probably not Ian McKellen, but I'm fairly certain Martin Freeman and then all of the dwarves, they were sent for a month of sword fighting, riding, and boating. And I saw it written down that Peter Jackson probably wanted to do it to try and get them to be able to bond before filming started, so that you would get that sense of everyone as a close-knit.
When it's that type of material.
And I would say whatever they did, it worked.
Yeah.
You get...
And Ian McKellen just needs to point a staff. He doesn't need point a staff and make someone break dance. Or that would be Saruman, I guess.
Well, unfortunately, the words "you shall not pass" were not uttered in this film.
Too bad.
Maybe they'll bring something. I'm not expecting "you shall not pass," but I'm expecting something in one of the next 2 films. Yeah. Maybe a prelude to "You Shall Not Pass." I won't let you carry on, or something.
Where they escape a danger, and at least it wasn't a Balrog. Of Morgoth.
Yeah. Is that the most terrifying thing ever? Well, there's one more.
That giant fire beast? Yeah, that thing?
Yeah. With wings that may or may not be made up of the fire and smoke. So,
I don't know.
Well, we read the Lord of the Rings book it appears in. Tolkien himself doesn't know if it's made of smoke or not. One passage, it's leathery wings that unfold. The next passage, it's wings made of fire and smoke. Maybe it has 2 sets of wings.
I don't know. Possibly.
They didn't really touch on it that much in the film.
All right.
I'll let it go.
Okay.
These characters are all pretty much brought together in the first 20 minutes. I'm going to say the first 20 minutes
of introducing
of narrative.
Not the prologue and not the setting up for Bilbo's party and all that stuff. And
from when Gandalf turns up and meets Bilbo outsiders.
And convinces for him to go on this journey.
These scenes where Bilbo first meets all the dwarves.
Oh, in Bag End,
And you see he's so put out by all of the people turning up. It's like, no, please leave.
They said there'd be food.
Yes, you get to see how it's basically hobbits are English people, like that type of thing, where they are all inside, and he's giving this speech of, now I have to say, I've always been told to be nice to everyone, but everyone just needs to leave right now. That's it. I've said it. I've had my say, and no one's been listening to him. And they say, "Did you say something?" No.
Just resigns.
And Gandalf mentions that he knew him when he was younger, I'm guessing, the Merry and Pippin, he was basically them, I gathered, when he was younger, and Gandalf is kind of surprised to see Bilbo worried about his mother's china and not wanting to leave anywhere. And he says, he gives the line, I'm a bag end, this is where I belong. So it's clear that every hobbit is just born with this. You sort of grow in the same area, you just make a home for yourself, and that's pretty much it. Yeah. That's where you go.
Yep, don't concern yourself with things that...
things going on out there, not
there's
from
even,
me.
Yep.
But you see the dwarves sing a song, which I think is also in the book, and it's a lovely little moment where you get to see all of these people who have been laughing and joking, and this is, I think, the night before they leave to go on their task, and they sort of sobers down.
Oh, it's more the chant almost.
Yeah, that I thought was a really nice scene. I wasn't expecting it.
Yeah, it was shown in the trailers quite heavily. A little bit of it, it was shown in there, so I knew it.
One thing about trailers I will say for modern films is stop putting things that are near the end of the film in the fucking trailers. Number one, I will say the biggest one of recent years was the Avengers film. There is a shot in the trailer which is pretty much in the last 5 minutes of the film. And when I went in, it got towards the end, and I realised I know what's about to happen here. I know exactly. It
wasn't Hulk and Loki, was it?
No, it wasn't Hulk
I would have been horrified if they gave that away.
No, it's a bit where actually I can't remember. Have you seen it at this point?
I've seen it, yes, quite a few times.
Okay, good. Yeah. Just wanted to double check. There was a time.
How would I know about the Hulk and Loki part?
Yeah. There was a time where you hadn't seen it.
Yes.
Not to dredge that.
Pre-podcast.
But Iron Man goes up and sends a new dog, and then falls down, and the film is building it up so that he's just gonna slam into the ground, and then Hulk comes out of nowhere and saves him. Of course, this is in every trailer for the film.
See?
Just catch.
I can be pretty good at forgetting those things, though.
Yeah. I wish I had that. Yeah. I wish I could see a trailer and then go into the film and not remember bits from the trailer.
Let's see, Dark Knight Rises I purposely avoided because I heard from that they showed too much. They show the stadium exploding and they show, just big moments in the movie.
And the trailer for this one, I thought, I don't remember the dwarves singing from that one, so maybe I saw a different trailer. I think I only saw the first one that came out.
There was a teaser, and then I think they had two.
And then, annoyingly, this is skipping ahead quite a lot. They gave away what could possibly have been the biggest laugh in the entire film, which was the goblin flat. That could be worse. Slap. The slapstick sort of at least it's not raining. Starts raining.
Yeah.
And it got to the point where the second that they were sort of going down into gravity, it's okay. Here it comes. Wait for it.
I wasn't even thinking about it. So. If I had seen it, I forgot it.
Again, it's one of those things that I am unfortunately fairly good at remembering little details and stuff like that. Yeah. So that one, again, if anyone associated with making the trailer for the following two Hobbit films is listening, please try not to put your biggest laughs or some of the big-ish twist or whatever. Just try and keep as much of that out.
Take a page out of the Man of Steel trailers because they're showing more with less. If you watch those, it gets me so excited by how little I'm seeing.
You're clearly only seeing stuff from the first half hour.
It's like the first reel, it's like the first reel, maybe second reel of that movie, but that's discussion for another day, hopefully.
Right. So the dwarves leave, and they leave without Bilbo, who then does decide, okay, I'm going. I can't not do this. And you see the thing in the trailer, where are you going, Mr. Bilbo? I'm going on an adventure.
Yeah.
Slightly over the top line.
A little bit, yeah. It's a little like your grandfather or something saying, I'm going to stay up till 10 o'clock tonight. Yeah.
I'm willing to forgive it a little bit for some of those, mainly because The Hobbit was actually a children's book anyway.
Yeah.
So this is maybe not necessarily aimed at all of the older people in the audience. There's going to be some there for young kids. And something like that will get the kids kind of like, yay, I want to go on an adventure too.
Going to bring that up in my rating too. But yeah, I know I keep bringing up Rings and comparing. And it's to an extent an unfair comparison because they are different stories.
Yeah.
And the stakes are much higher in Lord of the Rings. It's the end of the world, essentially.
As we know it.
Yeah, as the hobbits know it, and as every other peaceful race knows it. But yeah, in this, it's about trying to regain a kingdom, or for a home for the dwarves.
Which
it's still a noble cause. Yeah. And still,
100% noble cause, and you see Bilbo says later in the film, like, I have a home.
Yeah.
You don't.
Yeah.
But you deserve one. This is one of the main reasons that he finally decided, like, I'm going on this quest.
Yeah.
It's like
you had one, and it was taken from you.
Yeah, I'm sure there'll probably be a line again, probably in the next film, something where he'll say, someone else will probably ask him, why are you doing this? And he'll say, if someone took Baggin from me, I'd want it back. I'm sure that'll be in there somewhere.
Something along those lines, yeah.
And you get the joke that we laughed about earlier. Of he finally gets out, he's on horseback, and it's like, wait, have to go back. Don't have a handkerchief. Must have left it on the side. Just gets handed the brown handkerchief of indeterminate age and usage.
Yeah.
So you get a lot of the little scenes of, most of the dwarves don't really see Bilbo as much of an adventurer. He's just kind of there.
Kind of a burden.
Yeah. And one of the things that this film did well, and it's probably is setting up some of the things in the next films. Sorry we keep bringing out the next film, but it is a story in 3 parts.
It is an arc, yeah.
Where you get to see all of the dwarves come round to Bilbo and seeing, like, there's something about the guy. He's kind of a little bit like Frodo, he kind of rallies everyone to the cause. Or obviously they don't need rallying to the cause, but they rally around him. They start to understand he's maybe the heart of the journey, which I'm sure is what the character is in the book. He's the heart of this particular fellowship.
Yeah.
Like, whatever you want to call it.
Yeah.
And even Gandalf says later when he's talking to Galadriel, why the Hobbit? Because I'm afraid, and he gives me strength.
Gandalf just secretly hates Bagginses and has been trying to get them killed, and they keep surviving.
Yeah, at the end of everyone, they go back to the Hobbit, and it's like, crap.
He's the Terminator trying to kill Sarah Connor. Well, I guess I'll just kill the boy.
No. But he can't be seen to be directly involved. No.
No.
It's got to be behind the scenes.
You heard it here first.
Wouldn't that be an interesting take on the whole thing? All of this is actually just Gandalf trying to kill everyone and everything that's happening around them.
Yeah, and they keep pulling it out of their ass and surviving. Yeah.
Probably an ancient feud when a Baggins stole one of his loaves of bread or something.
Yeah.
And I would say, going through it, you get to see some, being New Zealand, everything, fantastic scenery.
Oh, are we going to go into the helicopter shots?
Which one?
That's why I said shots.
Yeah, you get, of course, same as Lord of the Rings, maybe even more so in this one.
More so, yeah.
Plenty of panoramic views from a helicopter.
Musical score heightening, and
I did think that they could, obviously you have the Lord of the Rings theme of, and so on. And they did alright at changing it a little bit, so it's not the same music. It's there, definitely there, but you get that it's a different film. It's not quite the same. And all of these shots are beautiful and couple too many, maybe.
That being said, at almost 3 hours long, if you find yourself having to use the facilities, that would be a good time.
Yeah.
It's something you can catch up on Blu-ray or DVD or VOD, whatever.
Yeah, definitely one of those things of, in the editing room, you know there was probably someone saying, like, do we really need this one? Is this one 100% necessary?
Peter Jackson was fighting for more running. He's like, no, I must have 5 more minutes of running.
Which, now that you've said it, yes, this is Middle-earth with about 50% more running.
50% more running, yes.
You have the original Lord of the Rings, which are, as Kevin Smith liked to say, 3 films about walking. Even the trees walked in those ones.
I love Kevin Smith, but to hell with his opinion on these movies.
Yeah, I'm not saying that his opinion is necessarily right. It just happens to be on the mark with the walking in those ones. And this one, it's very much fast-paced. Shockingly for a film that's one story spread over 3 films. Yeah. But still, it's very fast-paced. Everyone is running, which, if you think about it, they're racing to get to their mountain. They want to go and kill the dragon, and then they find out that they had to get there on a very specific day of the year so that they can see the door to get in.
And once again, when you're 3.5 feet tall, your span isn't so far, so you probably need to run.
Yeah. Well, I love seeing all of that. Like, they're all running, and then Gandalf is running. It's like, why are you running? You could walk
and still keep up with them. Yeah.
Do you just run, sit down, light a pipe, and wait?
He just smokes his weed, and yeah.
So, as I said, some beautiful panoramic shots of running. And then you get the sort of main bad guy of this film, because I know the Necromancer will become probably a behind-the-scene bad guy, and then Smaug is going to be the main villain of the piece, as it were, because obviously he's the one that took the home away. So that's
the dickhead dragon.
Yeah, he is the final boss, as it were. But then you've got this white orc who Thorin is sure is dead because he fought him on the battlefield because the white orc killed his father. I'm fairly certain the white orc killed his father. And so he then beat him down, as it were, chopped off an arm, or chopped off part of his arm, and then he was kind of dragged back into wherever it was he came from. So he just assumes that the White Orc died of his injuries. You find out the White Orc didn't die of his injuries. Sort of turned into Merle from The Walking Dead.
A little bit, yeah. A little bit of that, a little bit of Captain
Basically Hook. A spike just shoved into his stump. And so he becomes this sort of main antagonist of this particular film, constantly going after Thorin. He just wants to kill Thorin. That is his motivation for being the bad guy. Constantly sending orcs after them, and then the orcs are killed, so he just sends more orcs after them. Basic general strategy there. And I will say, spoilers obviously for this film, I was expecting him to be the sort of villain of the film, and then gone after that. I was expecting the end of the film to be them overcoming him, and then you find out someone else is maybe running it, or someone else is there, and then, end credits, whatever. I'm sure it's in the books and everything, but I like that they didn't do that, and that the story is that he just they get away from him rather than defeating him. So I get the feeling he's probably going to be one of those constantly after them.
It's going to be a thorn, in Thorin's.
But the scene at the end where he is trying to kill Thorin, they're stuck in trees, and then there's fire and everything. Thorin goes after him and gets knocked down. Not something that was supposed to happen. He gets knocked down, and that's when Bilbo, I think, you see flashes of it in the film beforehand, but that is when Bilbo finally decides, I'm fighting.
Yeah. With the newly acquired Sting, I might add. Which is awesome to see Bilbo using Sting.
Yeah, I like seeing, because they find a cache of weapons, basically, and then he gets handed the sword that Frodo gets. Yeah. Obviously, apparently, all swords of elfish origin glow blue. If there's goblins or orcs around, but I don't think Gandalf does. I don't know.
He just knows.
Yeah. Maybe he just didn't use the sword. He just used something else instead. No. But so it's good to see those things that from Lord of the Rings being introduced. Yeah. And I'm sure people who have read the books are just sort of screaming at me like, duh! Yeah. But as I said at the beginning, have not read the book all the way through, do not remember anything from what I saw.
1998, first and only time I read the book was 14 years ago.
I am watching this film just enjoying seeing a prequel to the books and the films that I know. So that's sort of where I'm coming from for this one. And one thing I definitely wanted to mention was when they are in the Hall of the Goblin King. I'm sure it's not the Hall of the Goblin King, but I just wanted to say that because Hall of the Mountain King. Yes, I am that pitiful, really.
I was letting it go. But
no,
hey, throw yourself under the bus.
Yeah.
All right.
So when they are on the run, basically, a bunch of them get captured except for Bilbo, and he sort of goes off on himself. We'll probably come back to that in a second. So all of them get captured, and then Gandalf turns up to save them, kind of. He flashes the goblins. It's don't worry, family-friendly film. He doesn't flash them that way, although I'm sure it would have the same reaction. And so they all get going. So then it's fight, run. And throughout the whole thing, I thought very fluid way of doing it. Like you saw pretty much the path they were taking. It didn't feel too choppy. Like, as you would sometimes, where we'd be like, run, run.
There was something I saw on Twitter. I forget the comedian who said it. It kind of made me laugh. He said he had a feeling that every 5 pages of the script must have read, and then Gandalf saves them. I was like, that sounds about right.
They're all being caught by the mountain trolls, and then Gandalf saves them. And then they're being chased by elves, and then Gandalf points out their crackers. And then Gandalf saves them. And then they're stuck in all the mountains.
He's always showed up at the right time, let me tell you.
Yeah.
He knows when to get there. But I thought that was pretty humorous.
So that's where he learned it then for the first 3 films then.
Save their ass at Helm's Deep? Come on.
So all of that sort of, it was very fluid, as I said, and also did something which I was surprised they were able to pull it off, and is something that unfortunately a lot of films aren't able to do. That scene where they're running, did not get boring. No, at least for me. They had enough, obviously. They were slashing and running and stuff, but they were doing enough different things. They were fighting in different ways. Maybe there was enough dwarves for them to have different styles to focus on. But I mean, that running scene, fighting the orc, that's a good 5 minutes, I think, in
at least, yeah.
And you're not sitting there at the 3-minute mark going, and are they out of there yet?
No.
It's a good series of running and fighting, and I think some people probably need to take a cue from that. And okay, so if we have a fighting scene, let's see how many different styles we can get away with, rather than punch.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it was, definitely kept my interest, which, I mean, the film as a whole, which is something I was actually concerned with going in because
of how long it is,
because of knowing it's just part of the story, and The Hobbit just being a smaller story on its own. And I was like, how am I gonna? This is gonna be 3 hours, and it's not even gonna be over. And there's gonna be a lot of times I'm bored, but there weren't. There's only a couple times where I was like, okay, maybe we can move it a little ahead.
Someone actually worked it out. At least from their copy of the book, there were more minutes in this film than there were pages of story in The Hobbit.
Yeah.
That's impressive that they were able to get that little of the story done and yet have this much, I would say, maybe 90-95% solid material on the screen. And
I can only imagine what he's going to throw in his extended cuts, which he does. Yeah. Which I imagine he will do for this when the time comes.
Yeah, this one will probably be... I'm going to say
it'll be 3.5.
Yeah, 3.5 hours, I'll say.
He tends to throw in at least half hour to 40 minutes in those Rings films.
Yeah. Maybe there won't be as much because it is stretched out, but you never know. He will always surprise
I expect at least 20 minutes to be added. About 16 of those running.
So, again, just sort of chopping here and there in the film, you've got one point where there's some rock giants. I'm not sure. Maybe that those particular beings have more significance in the book.
Yeah, the mountain.
They're climbing a mountain, and it turns out that the mountain is actually sort of a rock god type thing, and fighting with another rock god.
Not that kind of rock god. Not
not Gene Simmons and Ozzy Osbourne. But so those two fighting, and it's a fantastic looking scene.
The whole film is fantastic looking.
Now, I only saw the 2D.
As did I.
Okay.
If I had a choice in the matter, what I would be doing.
I hope that somewhere down the line I can go to a cinema and watch it in 48 frames.
Yeah, if anyone has seen that, please let us know your thoughts.
I've heard from a couple of sources that it almost looks like you are, rather than watching the polished film, it looks like you're watching the play version.
That's what
people in the costumes.
Surreal, yeah. Like you can see it's a costume, and you can,
I'd kind of love to see that, to see what that would end up being like. Preferably not in 3D, but
I think the combination of those two might make me sick. Like I would seriously might feel nauseous, like watching all that.
I'd be up for watching it in 3D, but given that the prices are hiked up for 3D, maybe just the 48 frames.
It's not a story that needs to be in 3D. Okay, all right, we're not going down that road. Well traveled road. So
a lot of the little scene, that's another 5-minute thing, but a lot of the little things here and there are quite good. I thought the weakest part of the film was probably the mountain trolls scene.
They had to pay off that story from Fellowship, though, because everyone's expecting that, because he's out on his birthday party telling the young children, they're all turned to stone. Which one of us they were going to eat first and all that. So it was nice to see that play off. The scene probably could have been shorter.
Yeah, I'm not saying that it was a bad scene, but I thought that the character of the trolls was kind of meh.
It was like a kind of cheap Mel Brooks world for a minute. With those characters, I could see they were real, kind of playing off each other in this comedic way that didn't always work.
And almost sort of going for the sort of hillbilly type, just sort of good with a lovely bit of butter, mixture. It's like, really? You couldn't just have them be maybe just a little bit more stupid but a bit more menacing, Doesn't one of them have a cook's apron on, or a makeshift cook's apron?
Did it say kiss the cook? I don't know.
Probably did in Elvish.
And the other point is, you don't really need to build a whole lot of tension in that scene, because everyone knows the outcome. You know
for a
he's
fact,
going to live.
You know for a fact that Bilbo's going to live.
Yeah.
You know that Thorin's going to live. Yeah. You're pretty certain that most of the other dwarves are going to live. Because,
unless you're completely new to the Middle-earth world and this is the first film you're watching,
you might only think maybe one of them will die at this point. Yeah. But, they needed something for Gandalf to come and save them, I suppose.
Exactly. And then Gandalf comes and saves them.
And, of course, the other thing being that Bilbo is using his head to get himself out of the situation.
That was the main point, is that he has something to bring to the group. Not maybe brawn, but,
There is a point to the scene, just, maybe could have done a little bit, I would say a little bit less with the trolls. Not have them as talky and everything. Obviously, the point is he's sort of outwitting them, but, could have just gone with sort of more dumb sort of just cook a meat. That's
I much prefer the cave troll from Fellowship. When Boromir says, "You have a cave troll." I like that cave troll. Didn't talk, just smashed.
Well, I guess the only other real thing that we need to touch on then is when Bilbo gets the ring from Gollum.
We got to talk about that. My favorite scene in the film, by far.
Played by the wonderful Andy Serkis again. Yes. Andy Serkis is basically just becoming your mocaption guy.
Yeah, I would say get him for any of your video games. Get him for pretty much anything.
I was going to say, I think the only thing I've ever seen Andy Serkis in, the only film I've ever actually seen Andy Serkis in is The Prestige, where he is Tesla's assistant or whatever it is.
King Kong too.
It's been so long since I watched that film.
Thank God he gets eaten by a bug or whatever it was in that 40-minute bug fight sequence. Neither here nor there. But I would imagine you might agree. But I think Gollum looks even better than he did in Return of the King.
Yeah, they definitely.
It's incredible, and I mean he needs to, because that scene is long, and you have to believe that's a real character. Yeah. Even though I know my eyes are looking at CGI. Yeah, he stands in that scene with Martin Freeman. Yeah. I mean, it's like you're watching two actors.
Yeah, I would say, especially the bits where he's clearly fighting with himself.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah, you see the struggle of the personalities.
And so in the facial stuff, you get all that. They've come up really well. And the way that he's interacting with the scenery and stuff, because all of those rocks around there are there. And all the little touches they have him do, it's fantastic what they're now able to do with those characters.
And I mean, it's a funny scene. I think that's most of the humor for me from the movie came from that scene, and I just love, because that was also my favorite chapter in the book, was Riddles in the Dark.
I will say the only issue I had with it, maybe it was the cinema I saw it in, maybe it was the fact that me and my wife sat directly in front of two people that were laughing at and commenting on pretty much everything in the entire film. But I could barely understand half of what Gollum was saying, which I got the gist of most of it, but it really pissed me off because I didn't hear any of his answers to the riddles, and I didn't hear any of his riddles.
Oh, wow.
So I heard Bilbo's answers to the riddles, but I didn't.
He had to reverse engineer the riddle.
And the one that I still don't know is when Bilbo says something about there's a box with no lid or hinges, and there's fire inside, or there's gold inside, or something, and Gollum sort of frets about it, and then has the answer. It's like, I was like, what? Anyone catch that?
Yeah, you're. It's a little not fresh enough in my mind to know what you're.
I'm sure I could just go to the book and read the riddles, but...
And I did want to bring up, important to remember, as much as Bilbo is our hero, he is a dirty, rotten thief. He stole that ring that did not belong to him. It was Gollum's ring. Yeah. He came by it, and he stole it. He stole it. Put it in his pocket. Yeah.
And just because it was useful, keeps it. So this is useful to me. Mine now.
So he calls him a liar and a thief. Go Gollum. You're
right. Which kind of actually plays into the first half of the film is set up with all of the dwarves calling him a thief. And Gandalf having introduced him as a thief. That's
supposed to be his role in the party. Yeah.
And he has to keep saying, like,
I've never stolen anything.
Never stolen anything. And then 45 minutes later, here he is.
Ooh, he just never found anything shiny, apparently. Oh, ring. I
shiny.
Like that.
Ooh, lovely.
Yeah. Little thief. But, yeah, great scene.
Yeah, look,
it just looks beautiful with the shadows and just
really,
playing along the wall.
Really well done. And I forgot, I'm glad I did, I forgot that it was a scene with Gollum basically fighting with him over the right to eat him.
Yeah.
I thought
there was real danger there for Bilbo.
I thought based on the trailer, because it didn't click for me that when he said he meant himself. So I thought he was basically saying that I'll either lead you out of here or I'll leave you and let this other creature eat you. Like, yes, he gets to eat it hot.
Not fair. It was kind of a tricky riddle. I mean, what's in my pocket? Not really a riddle, but
But under
the riddle rules, I guess. I don't know.
And Gollum accepted it as a question.
And give me time. Just a minute.
Give me 3 seconds. Well, that's the other thing about that as well. How does he prove what he does have in his... Like, does he have to prove what he has in his pocket at the end? Just nope.
Nope, you're wrong.
Nope, let me out of here.
It was chewing gum. The answer was chewing gum.
The answer was a Nokia 3210.
Tea-berry chewing gum.
I think I covered most of it.
Yeah.
The only other character that we haven't mentioned at all would be Radagast the Brown.
Radagast,
almost your sort of comic relief for the film,
kind of your hippie wizard a little bit.
Yeah. I did feel bad for the little hedgehog.
Oh, yeah.
Until he comes back,
yeah.
But still, it was a genuine little... You could tell that these animals are his only friends.
Oh, yeah. And it was cool seeing another wizard, like completely different from Gandalf and Saruman.
Yeah, yes, very different.
But still of the same, of the order.
And then, of course, you've got something which I don't believe is in the books, the rabbit sled.
The Kris Kringle-esque kind of sled he had, but piloted by rabbit.
Which I can only assume they were all his friends, so they all willingly just pull him on a sled.
I don't know.
Maybe it's one of those, he does so much for the forest, this is us giving back. But yeah, he is an interesting character. Apparently, based on what I've heard, he's not really featured in the books. He's more in the appendices as like going further into the world, listings. So that's sort of where they dragged him from. And I've heard some people say, they could have cut him from the film, but really there were a couple of things which he does for the other characters, which kind of meant you kind of got to keep him in, maybe the whole sort of people coming into the woods, the dark is coming, like that, they could have trimmed a few things in there. Mm-hmm. Again, not everyone is willing to look at the runtime of 2 hours and 45 minutes and go, yeah, that's fine. Yeah. That's maybe if you're familiar with how Lord of the Rings ended out, and you'll be like, okay, I'm going to give it a shot. Oh yeah, so, some of these plots maybe going a bit too far, especially, as we say, 3 films for one story, it's stretching it so much.
Well, that's the tendency now, though, because, I mean, they did it with Twilight, and I think they stretched that one into, and now, whatever. Yeah. As long as they're good films, I'm fine. Yeah.
Going the literary route, they really split the wrong book in half for the Harry Potter films.
Oh, yeah, and Harry Potter was another one,
Yeah, they should have split the 5th one in half, given how much was in that. Yeah. But anyway, I think, as a general discussion on the film, I think that's pretty much everything we need to cover.
I wanted to cover, I think.
Just a very basic summary there. It's a solid performance from pretty much everyone in it. I don't think there's too many dud notes.
Very few.
Yeah, and fantastic scenery. Thank you, New Zealand.
Once again, yes.
But, not much done in CG there, with the exception of, I think, the Goblin Hall that they escaped from.
Probably not there, yeah. Probably. Yeah,
but pretty much everything else is fairly good. Mm-hmm. Fairly good of New Zealand.
Those running shots are beautiful, don't get me wrong.
Beautiful, if unnecessary.
It's their version of the Indiana Jones plane moving on the map. It's, essentially. It's one way to think of it.
Yeah, you need something.
The plane with the red dots.
Little feet walking on the Middle-earth map, not necessarily as interesting.
Yeah.
Alright, well, the only other thing I can say about the film then would be the budget and the box office, which I neglected to say at the beginning. The budget is anywhere between $200 and $315 million.
Is that all?
Yeah. No one, as far as I could tell, has a definite this is the number, so it's in there. It's a bit like the Avatar of how much was actually spent on the thing. Mm-hmm. And the box office as of January 6th, worldwide, $829,521,000.
So they're in the plus.
They have... Depending on where the budget actually does fall, they have either made back their budget in America alone, or just about made back their budget in America alone. So,
and we'll do a ton more on DVDs and
not doing badly.
Yeah.
I mean,
it's going to be a huge rental.
Yeah. I think as of right now, it's the 34th highest grossing film of all time.
And there have been a lot of films. A lot of films.
A lot of films to fill that.
Yeah. So, would you like to rate first, or...?
Sure, I'll go first. And my rating, I decided to forego my usual sort of, there's my personal rating, then there's
let's just cut through it.
This one, I'm just going to go with the opinion one, because that's what everyone's going with. There's too many out there of how this is a film as a body of work or as an opinion piece, so I'm just going to give my personal feelings on it. Given that there's a couple of characters that maybe they had too much screen time, there's a couple of characters that I would have liked to see more backstory of, but I can't hold that against them until I've seen the second film, because there's still time to go into some of them. Maybe too many dwarfs spoiled plot, I don't know. But given that is my pretty much only gripe with this film, I'm going to go with a minus 1.5 because I enjoyed the experience of this film. I actually enjoyed this film more than I enjoyed The Lord of the Rings. Not to say I didn't enjoy Lord of the Rings, they are a solid film, but I enjoyed sitting down watching this film more because I thought it had a solid mix of the action, the comedy, some of the thriller dramas, whatever you want to call that bit. I thought it mixed it better than Lord of the Rings, even though Lord of the Rings, as of this point, was a sort of more of a serious war film, as it were. But, and maybe that skewed it for me. But, about a minus 1.5.
Okay, that's fair enough. Yeah, for me, kind of similar, but kind of not. I did not enjoy it as much as the Lord of the Rings films.
Right.
Fair enough. The time still went by relatively quickly for a nearly 3-hour film, I felt. Like I, wasn't checking my phone for time or or anything. It's dragged in a couple parts. I mean, you're going to have those parts that not everyone is into, or those scenes that not everyone's on board for in a 3-hour film. But I felt most of it flowed very well and looked amazing. Absolutely looked beautiful, and it fits very much in that set of movies. Like I was worried, like when years before this film was made, when they were still trying to get it and all that. I was really worried about Peter Jackson not directing it because it would have a different look and a different feel. Yeah. Even if he was attached as producing, it would still not feel right. Yeah. And it just felt like Middle Earth. It felt like the Middle Earth we'd been shown. And so I was very happy with that. And like I said, I'm more excited by the Lord of the Rings films. I still like that journey better for me. And that being said, though, a little curveball here, I'm going to rate it a -1.
Wow.
-1, yeah.
Yeah, given that I was expecting...
But just for a little insight, like I would rate those Rings films anywhere from a -0.3 to -0.8, somewhere in there.
Right.
Yeah. But
no, fair enough.
So -1 for me.
All right. I was expecting 1.5 or 2. Really, I didn't.
Yeah, I wish I had gone back to see it. Yeah, I might when it gets to like a dollar theater or something. A cheaper theater. Go check it out again.
Well, I may or may not join you.
But it's definitely a purchase for me. I will be buying this, and then I'll be buying it again when it's the 3-pack. Yeah, and then I'll be buying it again when it's the 6-pack of all films or whatever. Well, probably.
Well, in that case, I'll tell you what. I will borrow your single purchases. Okay. I will then buy the trilogy. Yeah. You can borrow that, and then you can buy the 6 of them.
Like all of my individual, not extended edition Lord of the Rings, which I will never view again. They're just taking a spot in a DVD rack, but I will not. I refuse to sell them.
Yeah, because why would you?
I don't know. All right.
The only reason most of mine went in England was I'm not in England anymore.
Yeah, and at this time, we would like to introduce or try out a new segment for the show, tentatively being called the Netflix Sleeper of the Week. Either I will have one, or Paul, or we both will.
Depending on if we've necessarily seen something we wish to bring to your attention.
Maybe it's something obvious, maybe it's something that is very old, whatever, but it's something that we think bears mentioning that you should know about if you don't. So very much, my first Sleeper of the Week is, funnily enough, called Sleepwalk With Me. It's comedian Mike Birbiglia, who, if you're into stand-up at all, I'm sure you probably know the guy. He's absolutely hilarious in my mind. But it's a semi-autobiographical story of him discovering and learning about this very dangerous sleep disorder he has, causing him to sleepwalk, and amidst this long-term relationship where he's being pressured into marriage. And it very closely ties into what happened in his own life. He wrote it. It's his directorial debut, and he stars in it as a stand-up comedian in the film. A lot of great stand-ups are in the film. A lot of great cameos.
Right.
And you have Carol Kane again. Princess Bride, and she was just in one of the movies we were. I don't know. Just talking about, but yeah. So great cast, and co-produced with Ira Glass from This American Life. Just definitely worth watching. It's a quiet, very funny, but very kind of emotional as well. If you've been in those long-term relationships, if you know they're going to end or whatever, there's a lot in there, and I think it's about hour 40, something like that. But check it out, throw it in your queue, and give it a look. I think you'll like it. So that's mine.
All right. Well, mine is a film called 4 Rooms, and I can't give you too many details off the top of my head because I didn't plan too much for this one, but it's basically a film with 4 different directors for 4 different mini stories, as it were. The film itself is only about an hour and a half or so.
It's really short.
Yeah, and it's got Eli Roth as... No, sorry, Tim Roth. Not Eli Roth. Eli Roth is not a film.
He is connected to that world, kind of. With Quentin and buddies, but
yes, Tim Roth as the main character who is a bellhop at this hotel, and he has to go and deal with 4 different quote-unquote emergencies in various rooms. And it's one of those films that I'd never heard of it, and then I saw it in the queue, and I saw who was attached to it, and I thought, oh, okay, that might be worth a watch. So me and my wife sat down, we watched it, and we laughed, and it kept our interest. It was a really solid film. We were surprised that we'd not heard of it before.
Yeah, and all directors I'm fans of.
Yeah,
most of their work.
if I tell you that Quentin Tarantino edits the last film, you probably don't need me to tell you that there's a lot of long shots. Bruce Willis is actually uncredited, but he's
he is in there. Yeah.
And Quentin Tarantino, of course, plays pretty much the main guy in that segment as well.
Yeah, it's been so long since I've seen it. I should probably go back and look at it.
Yeah, there's one thing there's a coven of witches in the hotel. There's a mistaken identity of a guy thinking that he's been sleeping with that guy's wife. There's a mob boss that wants him to babysit his children. And then there's a movie star, the Quentin Tarantino character, who wants him to do a slightly outlandish thing. With a few odd requests there as well. So it's one of those things of... You don't expect it to keep you going all the way through when you hear it's just different stories, but each story is very solid. The fact that it's this one character going in and out of these worlds really does keep it grounded. You get to see the wear and tear that this night has on him, because all this happens in one night.
It's a very innovative approach.
Yeah, and I'd like to see more, not necessarily of this film design, but more of this kind of style of. Okay, maybe you'll have a couple of different directors,
little vignettes.
I mean, in Sin City, Quentin Tarantino actually directs one, I think, a 5-minute scene in a car. Yeah, and he did it for $1, because he was friends with the guy, and it's just nice that it's got that additional feel to it. So it's one of those that you probably just want to see it once, just so you can see it. It's a funny film. It's definitely
it's a ton of fun.
And then maybe once you've watched it, you'll be like, I'd like to own that. You'll go out and get it. So, definitely worth a watch. At least until they take it off of Netflix.
Yeah, who knows when that'll be. So get on it, people.
All right. Well, I think that's it from us today.
That'll wrap it up.
All right. So I've been Paul.
And I've been Brian.
And just so you know, one does not simply walk into Mordor.
Bye, folks.
See ya.